A deer feeder, but instead of diet, captured these images of an unknown woman wearing the same clothes as found on the doe's body stumbling through the woodland on August 22, 2021. She was first recorded that night at 1:33 a.m. entering the frame on the right. In the next image captured a second later as the clock struck 1:34, she is invisible at all, suggesting that she was running at the time. She later appeared again at 4:30 and 4:31 a.m., this time hobbling in the opposite direction and using a large stick to support herself. This woman is strongly believed to be the Anson County Jane Doe, and though they didn't know why this lone female was wandering through the dense forest in the middle of the night, detectives now at least had a face to work with. Forensic investigators analyzed the images but weren't able to draw many conclusions. It appeared as if the woman's leggings were wet above her knees, as was the lower half of her stick. That suggested that she had crossed a body of water, likely see Pepper Creek. She had perhaps slipped and hurt herself while doing so, hence the walking stick. Some theorized that she was suffering from a mental breakdown, but others have suggested an even darker possibility that she was being held somewhere remote against her will, and with no time to get dressed she had seized an opportunity to escape. Proponents of that theory believe that she ultimately met her end at the hands of her captor, who had somehow managed to track her down. Whatever did become of this woman, it's truly chilling to look over these images and imagine what her final hours must have been like, wandering alone through the woods, lost in unending blackness. In February 2022, 6 months after the trail cam footage was captured, and a few months before the Doss remains were discovered, rabbit hunters stumbled upon a backpack containing an unspecified sum of cash close to the armory. They took the cash and abandoned the backpack in the forest. When news of the Doss discovery spread, they brought the existence of the backpack to the authority attention. Unfortunately, to this day, that backpack hasn't been found, despite providing relatively clear images of the Doe face. The trail cam footage didn't result in any new leads, at least none that the authorities have publicly announced, and that's the thing. Local law enforcement have remained unusually tight-lipped about this whole case, not releasing a description of the woman's remains, her cause of death, the color of her hair, or even a description of the missing backpack. No major news outlets have reported on the story either, and it feels to many as if little's being done to solve this case. As one anonymous local resident put it, "I sure hope I never go missing in Anson County." In conjunction with these creepy images, it's that silence that spilled so much online interest in the story, with so many questions and so few answers. The Doe's identity has become a huge topic of discussion here on YouTube, over on Reddit, and perhaps most importantly on Facebook. Attempt to locate is a Facebook group with 123,000 followers, a place for users to share photos related to UIDs or unidentified dead and attempt to link them to the case files of missing persons. And while discussing these images of Anson County Jane Doe, several users brought up this woman, Amber Ray Johnston, a 36-year-old mother from Mojave County, Arizona, one who's been missing since August 2021. To quote her page on missingpersoncenter.org, Amber was last seen in Bullhead City in August 2021. She left all her personal belongings at her apartment. Her boyfriend left around that same time and went to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and Amber was supposed to take a bus to Myrtle Beach on August 16th and meet him there. In her last Facebook post on August 19th, she streamed live from a bus before getting off at Winston-Salem. She hasn't been heard from since, and it's not clear whether she arrived at Myrtle Beach or not. Curiously, Amber's food stamp card was used by another woman after her disappearance. The woman, when contacted, said Amber's boyfriend had sold her the card in the months prior to her disappearance. Amber had been using drugs and acting paranoid. Her case remains unsolved and the circumstances are unclear. Amber Johnston bears an undeniable resemblance to the woman captured on the trail cam, and the date of her lost correspondence lines up perfectly with when the footage was recorded. This lead has since been brought to the authorities' attention, and it's yet to be confirmed whether Amber truly is the Doe or not, given just how much attention this case has received as of late. Though I wager that the local authorities will dedicate more resources to identifying her, and that she'll be given her name back in the near future. Until then, Anson County Jane remains one of the USA's 14,000 unidentified decedents. I'll be sure to keep you all posted about any breakthroughs on my social media music accounts. This is the last known photo of Sadhu Sharma, a smart and cheerful 8-year-old boy from West Bengal, as reported by India Today. The boy met his end on February 16, 2024, when he accidentally witnessed his mother Shanta Sharma in a, quote, compromising position with her secret lesbian partner Ifat. Pavan Sanu became distraught when he saw his mother betraying his father. Little did he realize that his father Pankaj already knew about his wife's secret love affair, which had been going on since before they got married, but he had chosen to keep silent about it. Shanta tried to persuade her son to keep quiet too, but even after talking things over with him, she and dad feared that he might reveal their secret to someone. Although lesbian relationships are legal in India in certain areas, they're considered extremely taboo and socially unacceptable. Terrified of a social backlash that could ruin their lives, both Shanta and Ifat did the unthinkable together. They pinned Nan down, stabbed him several times with a vegetable knife so forcefully that the blade bent, and struck him in the head with an iron rod and a stone idol. They did all this while the boy's father Panad was at work, and when the only witness at the home was the family dog, Shadow. However, when Sadhu's cousin came over and discovered the boy's lifeless body inside the home, investigators were quickly summoned and were able to identify his killers. Shanta and Neat's mobile data placed them from inside the house with Sadhu at the time his life came to an end, as did surveillance footage captured by a neighbor. Forensic experts also found traces of Sadhu's vital fluid on both of their clothes and on the stone idol inside the family home. They were arrested 4 days after the slay, at which point Shanta confessed to taking her son's life out of fear of social embarrassment and ostracization. Deputy Commissioner Biswas stated to the media the relationship between Shanta and Theet was an old one. They used to talk on the phone for hours past midnight. Based on multiple pieces of evidence, we zeroed in on these two women. Shanta was arrested from her home and Ifat from hers. Both women are currently being held in police custody awaiting their trial. Sadhu's father is calling for his wife and her partner to be hanged on September 20, 2022. Emma Brown, aged 12, was firing guns with her father, Daniel Brown, at their home in Phil, Texas. Daniel ran a firearms business and Emma had grown up around guns and ammo. That afternoon the pair posed together for a photo before their joint target practice. What Daniel didn't know in that moment was that his daughter had other plans in mind, which he had morbidly hinted at by wearing a Harry Potter t-shirt with the quote, I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. The 7th grader had secretly been planning a murder pact with an online friend. Both girls have mutually agreed to take out their entire families, including their pets, before running away together. According to chat logs, Emma planned to steal her parents' car, pick up her accomplice, and drive 230 miles to Georgia. Shortly after this image was taken, Emma intentionally fired a shot into her father's abdomen after incapacitating her father. Emma took off down the driveway and walked about 100 yards down the road, but for whatever reason, she aborted her plan and, instead of making her way to Georgia, fired a single shot into her own head. Officers later arrived at the scene and found Emma lying in the dirt road. She passed away 2 days later in our local hospital. Her father Daniel survived his injuries. Emma's partner in crime, who also happened to be a 7th grader, was picked up by the authorities at her home in Lufkin and was charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Thankfully, she had either backed out of their mutual pact or never intended to go through with the plan in the first place, as her family were unharmed. She was fully prosecuted and sentenced in March 2023. Neither her name nor her sentence have been revealed to the public due to her age, and it's unclear how she and Emma had met or why they both intended to eliminate their families and run off together. Icon Park's Orlando Freefall was touted by its operators as the tallest freestanding drop tower in the world. The attraction lifted riders in a gondola 430 feet above the ground before inclining the seats forward 30 degrees and plunging them into a free fall, breaking 100 feet above the ground. Riders were only meant to experience a 4G thrill, a mild stomach upset, and a few laughs. But on March 24, 2022, things ended very differently. For one part, guest Terry Sampson was just 14 when he fell to his demise from the Orlando freefall drop tower. The adolescent, originally from St. Louis, had been on vacation in Florida with his family and a friend when he and his bud made it to the front of the line for the drop tower. Staff were immediately concerned with the boy's size. The tower's manual specified a weight limit of 287 for the ride. Terry, who stood at 6 feet 5 inches and weighed 383 pounds, was too large to fit safely into the seat. As such, the harness sensor and tie seat had to be manually adjusted, loosened, and then tightened again, creating a larger gap than normal between his harness and the seat. The young attendant assisting Terry had only been working at the park for 3 days, was still technically a trainee, and believed that because the adjustment had made the indicator light turn green that it was safe to proceed with the ride. Moments before the ride was activated, Terry could tell that something wasn't right and reportedly said to his friend beside him, "I don't know, man, if I don't make it down safely. Can you please tell my mama and daddy that I love them?" This photo shows Terry seconds before the gondola began to rise. His shoulder bar was noticeably looser than his fellow riders. After the ride reached its target height of 430 foot, Terry began to panic, realizing that he wasn't properly secured, but by that point it was too late. The ride went into freefall. The brakes applied, and because of the G-force, Terry was effectively sucked through the gap in his harness and hurtled to the concrete, smashing into the ground head first. He died shortly after impact. Video footage of this incident exists, but for obvious reasons I don't recommend seeking it out. The visuals and, in particular, the sound are absolutely soul-crushing. Even worse, when viewing it, it's apparent that nobody immediately helped the boy, and park employees can be heard trying to pass the blame. A lawsuit filed by Tyre's family claimed that there were no visible weight limits or scales at the ride location. After learning the details of what happened, I can't help but wonder, why wasn't he turned away, said Ty's mother. He'd been refused on other rides, so why not this one? I understand he's a child. He insisted on riding with his friend. I get that, but as an adult or a ride attendant, that decision should have been made. His feelings might have been hurt, but he would still be here with me. His family followed a wrongful death suit against the owners of the amusement park and settled for an undisclosed amount. The ride has since been dismantled. On July 6, 2023, 2 students disappear from India's northeastern state of Manipur Hijam line in Gambia. 17-year-old Mehdi Hindu had been attending tutorials that morning and was later captured on CCTV riding on a motorbike with her friend Fwam Hythe, age 20, when both youngsters failed to return home that evening. Their families reported them missing for over 2 months. Their whereabouts and well-being remained a mystery. Both sets of parents clung on to hope that their children would be found alive and well. That is until late September, when this photo went viral on social media. The image shows both missing students seated together in an outdoor wooded area. Lio Gambi wears a mask and looks directly at the camera with a scared expression, while him and Jet's gaze is subverted and empty. 2 armed individuals, their caps can be observed in the background, members of the rival Cookie Christian community who had forced the 2 students into one of their trucks at gunpoint in May of 2023. Violence had erupted between the Métis people, who make up the majority of those living in the Yal Valley region of Manipa, and the Kuko tribal community, who called the surrounding hills home. The Cookie people have long complained about feeling marginalized and persecuted by the MES, who hold more sway with the state government. Intentions came to a boiling point when the MES demanded official tribal status, which would allow them to buy land and settle in predominantly Kuki areas. To date, approximately 200 people have been killed during the conflict, more than 1,000 injured, 60,000 displaced, and countless women and publicly humiliated. It's safe to say that atrocities have been committed by both sides. Now, I'm by no means an expert, but from my understanding, the K Cookies have a legitimate grievance with how the state government favors Métis people. However, in this case, Cookie militants seem to have taken their frustrations out on 2 innocent young people and decided to make an example out of them. By the time this image had surfaced online, the conflict had become so inflamed that curfews and internet blackouts were ordered. Another blackout was issued after it was posted too, leading many to hope that peace negotiations may result in Leo Gambi and him safe release, but when normal internet services returned on September 25, a second picture began circulating online, one that showed the bodies of the two students lying in a pit. They were wearing the same clothes as seen in this image, and it's believed that they were executed mere moments after it was taken, likely as revenge against the Yimias Hijam Shanti Kumolam's uncle, revealed that these images had broken the poor girl's mother. She's devastated and faints every few minutes. He stated she had been anxiously awaiting any news of her daughter's safety, of her return. We had to show her the images to accept that she will never return, never. The government has utterly failed. There is no governance here. For the past 3 months they've suspended the internet. Without internet we'd have never learned about their deaths. During a protest held in Yamal, thousands of students rallied to demand justice for Leo Gambi and HTH. At least 45 protesters sustained injuries following clashes with the authorities, who deployed tear gas and fired rubber pellets. I want to assure the people that both the state and central government are closely collaborating to apprehend the culprits, Chief Minister Singh stated on Twitter on October 1, 2023. 4 adults were arrested in connection with the slaying of the students, 2 men Pinland, Hup and Small Hup, and 2 women Leon, Baki and Tyning Hang. If found guilty they'll face the death penalty for taking the lives of 2 young innocent students caught up in the crossfire of a conflict that they didn't start, that they didn't participate in, and that they didn't ask for. Darren Charles Mitchell, 21, was a National Guardsman and father from Navasota, Texas. May 26, 2016 was a torrentially rainy day in that part of the Lone Star State, and as Darren traveled down Highway 105 just outside of Brenham, his truck became trapped in flash flood water which washed out the road. He clambered out into the bed of the vehicle and called his brother to let him know the situation, that he was trapped but still alive, but the flood continued to rise at an alarming rate. A high percentage of flood related fatalities come from being hit by debris, and so perhaps fearing being struck or washed away, Darren clambered back into the driver's side seat shortly thereafter. At 6:29 p.m. he posted this photo to his Facebook page. The caption read, "All I wanted to do was go home, but Darren would never get to go home again." Moments after uploading this photo, his vehicle became fully submerged. One local resident, Londo Smith, watched in horror as Darren's truck was swept away by the water. All of a sudden he got back in his truck, and like maybe 10-15 minutes after that it just flipped and he top-sided into the water. It just disappeared. You didn't see tires, his truck, nothing. The following morning Darren's body was found downstream in Kirkle Creek. He was far from the only person who lost their life during that flood. Leah Holland, 64, drowned when flood waters consumed her home. Jimmy Wayne Schaefer, 49, was swept away in his vehicle. Florida Malma, 23, drowned in her car. And P.L. Uma, 59, was found lifeless in Ewa Creek on October 22, 1999. 60-year-old Santa Barbara resident Jan Davis attempted a base jump from El Capitan in Yed Park. Davis's jump was part of an organized several act of disobedience protesting new regulations which made base jumping illegal and why without a permit. By leaping from Eliton, the group hoped to prove a simple point, that base jumping was completely safe and that it shouldn't be outlawed. The protest was organized in reaction to the drowning death of fellow jumper Frank Gambar, 3, on June 9. Frank had successfully parachuted from Eliton but drowned in the river below while attempting to escape from rangers once, who was taking out the mountain to catch jumpers. Breaking the new regulation, Jam was the 4th of 5 jumpers who had gathered at the top of El Camp to attempt the jump. The first 3 successfully executed their jumps and received cheers from the 150 or so onlookers at ground level. These jump were subsequently taken into custody by rangers stationed at the bottom of the mountain, but they all anticipated this. Jan herself had even dressed in an inmate's outfit, mocking what she considered a ridiculous regulation. At approximately 1:20 p.m. it was her turn to step up to the plate. An experienced jumper who had performed stunts in movies like Waterwall and Kono Chan showed no signs of fear as she shimmed up to the edge of a lap. One of her fellow protesters gave her a 10-second Countdown, and with the shout of 3-2-1 see you ringing in her ears, Daredevil Jan flung herself over the edge of the 3,200 feet mountain. Initially all appeared well, but onlookers grew concerned when she didn't deploy her chute at the recommended altitude. Woman, muttered the cameraman as he watched her falling towards the rocks below at full speed. Dude, she's got problems, man, he said a few seconds later. Chan fell for over 15 seconds before striking the talus slope at the cliff's base. She died on impact. Investigators later found out that Jan was jumping with borrowed gear, fearing that the rangers would confiscate hers upon her arrest. Trouble was Jan usually pulled the cord on her back on the borrowed jumpsuit. The cord was on her leg. This likely led to confusion mid-jump and, unfortunately, spelled her doom. Base jumpers argue that by prohibiting the activity, rangers are forcing hobbyists to take unnecessary risks such as jumping in low light and using all the gear. That they don't mind being confiscated, but rangers argue that the community's readiness to break their own rules is exactly why base jumping can't be allowed. And ironically, Jan's protest jump served to highlight their point. Although base jumping is still banned in Hawaii to this day, hand gliding is permitted 1 day a week from Glacier Point. The hand gliding community have always been very compliant with the regulations, said Y spokesperson Scott Mann, whereas the base jumpers have not. If you enjoyed the video and you'd like to see more, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads. Before we end, a huge thank you to my supporters here on YouTube and over on Patreon, especially my biggest supporters: George Lopez, Holly Lyons, Modest, Alana Pon, Asia Mina, Azel Waraki, Chief, Kate Cullen, Monsma, Connor, Lona Seweso, Farewell Tattoos, Jack Zil, Gina Valera, Hey Sheehan, Back, Kevin Villa, Monica Mendoza, Peter L, Smiling Jack, TNS Mom, Heish K.